Hello, I'm Ray. I spent 30 minutes in the presence of Sasquatch and experienced incredible mind-altering things. Getting right to it, here's my story. I started out that day by myself with the intent on meeting a Sasquatch, that is, on purpose. I planned to use a newer communication technique that I had inadvertently used on a previous contact experience with interdimensional peoples, an insectoid race in Joshua Tree, California. I wanted to see if this particular method could be repeated successfully to invite the Sasquatch to my location and to communicate with them telepathically, and of course to observe if they were also interdimensional as well. My actual intention was to ask the Sasquatch people, provided they show up, if they would be willing to teach me a little bit about them, who they were, and if they would like to share anything with us humans. My mission was to confirm their existence, introduce myself, learn about them, and be open to whatever the experience brought me without bias or reserve. What I got back in return was an incredible and unexpected and sometimes difficult experience. I arrived at the location I had previously researched and chosen, not even sure if I would be successful in meeting a Sasquatch. I had been planning this outing 2 weeks beforehand. I even had prepared by bringing my intentions of this outing into my meditations, putting it out there to whomever would be listening or picking up on my vibrations or mental and telepathic frequencies. That day, as I neared the chosen location in my car, I scanned the area with my eyes and intuition, looking for the ideal spot with a large tree near the natural flowing creek that wind on through an old ancient grove of giant oak trees. Through the trees from my car, I spotted a giant of a tree close to the banks of the creek. It stood out to me more than the others, so I headed in that direction on foot. This is in a 428-acre protected national park that is situated down in a canyon of sorts and outlined on one side with a chain link fence and suburban houses above on the rim. I could hear a dog barking from the nearby neighborhood as I walked over the crunchy forest leaves deeper into the oak tree forest. I crossed the small creek to get to the large oak tree I had been drawn to, which was about 10 to 15 feet up from the creek. I placed my hand on the ancient oak tree, wondering how old it really was and what it had witnessed in the last 200 or 300 years. And I imagined its enormous root system going deep underground and connecting with the other trees in the woods and beyond. I sat down at the base of the tree, set my camera beside me, and got out my notebook for automatic writing, which is a type of channeling, just in case I received a reply, and contingent on if Sasquatch would actually show up or not. Birds were chirping loudly and flying in and out of the trees, and this ground squirrel was playing nearby. He was obviously watching me, the human stranger in the woods. I began meditating to relax and calm myself and to bring my senses up to a higher state of perception or consciousness, which is necessary for telepathic communication. I also put forth mentally and telepathically the questions I had for the Sasquatch. I projected to them personally that I'd like to learn more about them. I also asked if they would like to share anything with us humans or humanity. Within about 8 or 10 minutes, a strong gust of wind suddenly blew through. Then the air temperature dropped a few degrees and became very still. The birds and other background noises ceased. The squirrel that had been playing near me had disappeared completely as well. At that point, I was thinking to myself that I should have brought a jacket with me, but had not brought one that day because it was like 72 degrees and sunny out. I looked around slowly, but was still not convinced entirely that this was anything unordinary happening. Then I heard a deep-sounding voice say to me telepathically, "We are here." Skeptical me, I still didn't feel entirely convinced of this, so said back telepathically, "How do I know it's you, the Sasquatch? I don't see you. I wonder if I could have a visual, please?" I suddenly received a vague image telepathically of a Sasquatch being's face. The eyes looked clearer, image-wise than the rest of the Sasquatch's face and seemed personally focused on me. They were an auburn reddish orange color, an unusual color, and significantly bright. As the image of the Sasquatch's face was being projected telepathically, my body began to feel heavy. I began to feel slightly nauseous. My body also began to vibrate internally like a tiny motor inside. Also during this, all happening at once, a strong empathic and telepathic connection or link was seemingly being initiated. These physical sensations felt near overwhelming to me and uncomfortable. Plus, I was still feeling a little chill from the cold air. So I paused, breaking off the telepathic link momentarily to compose myself for a couple of minutes. At that point, I was feeling a little disappointed in myself for not displaying the strength of mind and body to handle these unexpectedly strong energies. Then I heard that telepathic voice again, more strongly this time, say to me, "We are here." Again, I struggled with these strong energies, but made the decision to relax as much as possible, breathe, and stay with it. I also at that point felt as though there were more than one Sasquatch semi-circling around me, perhaps 3 or 4. At the same time too, while he was speaking telepathically, I felt a heavy pull at my heart, or heart chakra as well, probably due to the strong empathic connection initiated between us. This link between us felt more empathic and emotional versus being solely telepathic. All of my previous encounters throughout the years with non-human extraterrestrials and interdimensional peoples has had an element, or lack thereof, emotion from them. What I believe had taken place thus far was a purposeful matching of our frequencies between him and myself, and of which was also both empathic and telepathic. I don't know if their vibration was a little too much for me to handle, with them appearing at my location at a higher rate of frequency, or if there was another factor going on, such as, in addition, an extraterrestrial presence. I felt at least one extraterrestrial was also there very near me, observing, which was greatly unexpected, yet brought comfort to me, being alone in the woods with unfamiliar people such as the Sasquatch. I've always felt at ease in the presence of extraterrestrial peoples and even interdimensional people and in spirit form souls. I almost feel as though the air had turned cold and quiet because there was perhaps a ship above projecting some type of bubble or containment field of protection over the small area in which I sat, perhaps in order to allow for the Sasquatch peoples to safely make their presence there. If this were also the case, then that too would explain the higher frequencies that my body was having so much trouble coping with. In other words, the Sasquatch and the extraterrestrials are perhaps in friendly collaboration with each other. This would make sense, given that I now understand and have experienced that the Sasquatch people, or at least some branches of them, are interdimensional and perhaps had arrived via a portal or via a ship to my location, a location not known for previous Sasquatch sightings, although the location is also a 10,000-year-old ancient Chumash Indian village as well. The air continued to have a heavy energy or weighty feel to it. I started feeling nauseous again. I was even feeling a little embarrassed too for not being able to handle these strong energies better. I again needed to pause a few minutes at that point. Then the overwhelming energies that I was feeling suddenly felt dialed down, as though they decided to hold themselves back energy-wise. I then felt as though only one Sasquatch was there with me, just one. Perhaps the others had left or had backed away considerably. My physical symptoms began to diminish more as well, but they were still there to a small extent, but now felt more manageable. Then, as I was wondering to myself if that was it, that maybe my contact with them was finished for the time, I heard footstep sounds about 15 feet from me and slowly approaching towards me along a worn animal path. The leaves on the forest floor were crunching as footstep sounds would make, but nobody was there. Oddly, low branches about 2 or 3 feet tall, hanging over the path, swayed in unison with the invisible footsteps. I thought I was seeing things. I kept staring in the direction of the sounds and commotion, and still not fully believing what I was witnessing. It was like out of a movie, but actually happening right there in front of me. At one point, the crunching footsteps seemed to pass under a large tree with overhanging branches about 10 feet up. They moved and swayed above as though something was brushing them or slapping at them. Leaves were falling from the branches over just that spot, like it was raining leaves. Those tree branches were only about 15 feet from me, and only raining leaves in that one spot. I sort of found it amusing. Well, it was a little funny. I looked up into the branches that were moving, thinking, well, maybe there's an animal up there jumping around. There was no animal up there. Those branches were seemingly shaking and moving by themselves. This seemed to verify that the Sasquatch, or at least some branch of them, indeed were interdimensional and able to physically shift or slip partially and fully between realities or dimensions. In other words, they could make themselves visible or invisible or partially visible, even blending in with the landscape at will. Indeed, something tall that I could not see with my eyes seemed to be walking under the lower branches and shaking or slapping at them, causing them to move enough to cause hundreds of leaves to shower down like rain or snow, but just in that one spot. Falling leaves stopped after about 2 minutes. Then I heard bushes and the forest floor rustling and crunching again as the invisible footsteps moved farther away from me and stopped inside a large, tall, and thick bush about 30 to 35 feet from me. I felt more relaxed now. Maybe I had acclimated to the strong energies, or they had been dialed down for me. The amusement I felt from those leaves raining down helped me to feel a bit more relaxed and at ease. At that point, I suddenly felt the urge to pick up my notebook and pen and intuitively felt that I would possibly be receiving a channeling or telepathic message. No sooner than I had picked up my notebook, I telepathically heard the same Sasquatch speaking to me again. He unexpectedly started out with a formal introduction of himself. He spoke slowly and deliberately. As he spoke, I jotted his words down in my notebook. He said, "I am Garspot. We achieved greatness through trial and error. Where there are many of us, few see us, as in the past, there have been retrieval attempts of our race. We are the original caretakers of Earth, that known as the Sasquatch race, an Indian given name. In the beginning, there were few of us, as taking of our genetic material and passing it on to you gave rise to humans on this planet. Many humans." I felt so much emotion coming from him upon hearing these words. He had put an emphasis on the words, many humans. I had to pause for a few minutes because the emotion I was picking up was so strong. What he felt, I felt equally. He paused too, as I collected myself. Then he said, as though he seemed to be understanding of my deep emotional reaction to his words, "We can be emotional too. Our race is a forbidden topic among other races." He then telepathically and in a condensed telepathic way projected to me that he had a question for the human race. And he continued, "When can we join you as a race is our question to humanity." My heart melted upon hearing him say this. There again was so much emotion being projected and shared. I think we both paused for quite a bit after this, leading me to believe that our conversation had perhaps ended. But as I managed to compose myself once again, he started talking, almost in afterthought, telepathically again. People can marry into this idea of there are other friendly souls on this planet, not always visible to the eyes. Nature is our calling. We do what we can to protect the Earth planet, our home too. I then put down my notebook while still trying to recover from these strong emotions that I had felt during my connection with Garspot, as well as the overall energies that were going on at the same time. Then, without thinking, and still sitting at the base of the tree, I had the urge to pick up my camera and film the area where I had seen the branches move and where the walking sounds ended in the large set of bushes. I pointed my camera right at the bush where the noises had culminated and filmed. Later at home, I reviewed the footage. After zooming in, there was a spot in the video in those bushes that have a suspect outline and shadow, almost transparent, merged image of what looks like a Sasquatch from the mid-torso up. Interestingly, in the film, the leaves are moving gently in the breeze, except for where the Sasquatch outline is, which is very still compared to the foliage movement around it from the breeze. I sat there for another 5 or 10 minutes. I don't remember how long exactly, but towards the end of that, and just as I was about ready to head back to my car, I started feeling a dull pressure at the top of my head with some vertigo or dizziness. It almost felt like I was not completely there in full Earth dimension. I had to sit a little bit longer there, worrying about how I was going to drive home feeling like that. I didn't understand why this was physically happening to me. It took me almost a week to process the physical symptoms, especially the new symptom that emerged after the experience. The physical feeling that the crown of my head was going to explode. I kept feeling a dull headache like pressure that was uncomfortable at times. Those symptoms I felt around the crown of my head lasted about 3 or 4 days. During those few days, I got little sleep, and it increasingly felt like the top of my head was open to the elements up there, like there was no upper skull at all. I was also experiencing increased mental activity and was feeling ultra sensitive to vibrations, frequencies, and energies in general around me, from plants, rocks, animals, other people, the wind, the warm sun, everything. I also experienced the effortless ability to receive answers to all my inner questions or curiosities immediately at will, as though I was downloading truths and knowledge in real time from source, or the higher self or oversoul, I don't know, or perhaps from what some refer to as the Akashic records, or something like that. I now feel that what I experienced afterwards was an expansion of sorts, or triggering, or initiation of the crown chakra. Now, whether this crown chakra expansion was facilitated by the Sasquatch people that I met, or by nearby extraterrestrial presence, or by the overall increased energies and frequencies that I had been exposed to, I cannot say for sure at this time. Perhaps it was a combination of all three. This whole experience out in the woods lasted about 30 minutes after looking at the time immediately afterwards. However, unexplainably, it felt like the whole experience happened to me within a mere 15 minutes at most, which left me a little disoriented upon realizing this at the time. This connection with the Sasquatch representative, Garspot, was very different to other non-human contact experiences that I have had. He clearly demonstrated that they have the same emotional capabilities as humans. They are extremely empathic and capable of strong emotional vibrations and heartfelt energies. They are also quite adept both telepathically and empathically. And I strongly believe that they, or at least some branches of the Sasquatch, are indeed interdimensional and able to slip or phase in and out between realities or dimensions. After this experience, it has also become clear to me that the Sasquatch race have been hurt by many from the human race, and reminiscent of the indigenous peoples in North America or other lands that have been hurt. The Sasquatch also have feelings as we do, and the ones I met are not savage beasts to be feared. They are people, a fellow race on this planet, and very possibly with shared DNA to ours. I strongly suspect that at some point in the distant past, In regards to Earth's true history, extraterrestrial visitors combined their DNA with a particular branch of Sasquatch DNA, with the ending result of creating the human race here on Earth. Yes, we've heard that the Anunnaki combined human DNA with extraterrestrial DNA, but is it more probable that there is a third missing component to that? That being the addition of Sasquatch DNA or early hominid DNA. Is it also possible that the missing link theory is actually that time or point in Earth's history when extraterrestrials indeed combined early hominid DNA, like a branch of the Sasquatch, with their DNA to create the human race of today? Based on the differing reports of Sasquatch sightings, it is also probable that there may be different offshoots of the Sasquatch, with some being not as advanced as the Sasquatch that have achieved great interdimensional capabilities, and equally probable that the higher evolved race of Sasquatch peoples are actively protecting the less advanced Sasquatch branches or species. This would explain why they are so difficult to find, and especially, if not near impossible, to find physical evidence of the Sasquatch. Perhaps the evidence is being carefully removed so as to protect their fellow, albeit less evolved cousins for obvious reasons. This was one of the most intense encounters with a non-human people that I have ever had. Even with the after effects alone, I remain more sensitive to energies around me. That part of it has not subsided, not fully. In the final words of the Sasquatch representative Garspot, I again relay this message to you from him. When can we join you as a race?